It is day 9 of the Occupy Central protests, and the situation has been generally calm. Demonstrators are no longer blocking access to the central government offices, and that's allowed civil servants to return to work at the government compound today without problems. But the access of vehicles to the chief executive's office is still restricted. Liz Yoon reports.
This footbridge was cleared so that government staff could go back to work at the central government offices today. Officials who usually go to work by car had to return to their offices on foot through this pathway. Under-Secretary for Food and Health Sophia Chen said her colleagues hope to go back to work as usual. And Director of Administration Kitty Choi hopes that protesters would no longer block Tim Hwa Avenue so that visitors and officials may get into CGO by car. Most of the government staff we spoke to said they had no problems getting back to their offices, but some admitted that there was some inconvenience.
Traffic's okay.
And as for the arrangement?
It's not peasant here.
What do you think about the arrangement?
It's fine. It's
a passageway.
Yeah.
But is it hard getting to work this morning?
No, it wasn't.
Did you get back through this?
Yeah, the same.
Here at the cleared passageway, there's a noted presence of central government offices' security guards. But throughout the day, it was more or less peaceful as civil servants weren't barred from going to work. Meanwhile, some protesters are still gathered in front of the chief executive's office. They say they're waiting for Leung Chun-ying to address people's demands. But Leung was working at Government House and did not show up here today. Despite the presence of protesters here, vans carrying food and drinks were able to enter the government compound to provide supplies for police officers on duty. The government says part of Lung Wo Road and Tim Hwa Avenue are still being blocked by protesters buying vehicular access to CGO. Tomorrow's Executive Council meeting will be held at Government House instead of CGO. Members of the public may not be able to voice their views like they usually do before or after EXCO meetings because there will be no protest zone at Government House tomorrow. Liz Yun, TVB News.
And our Ronnie Samtani is standing by in Admiralty now. Ronnie, tell us about the situation down there right now.
Hi, Chris. Here outside the central government offices, demonstrators have been handing out flowers to staff as they have been leaving work. The demonstrators have stressed that they are not against government staff and that they are just protesting so that the government will respond to their calls for real democracy. Earlier today, some government staff and people working in the Admiralty and Central area went down to Harcourt Road to see what protesters have been up to. Right now in the Admiralty protest zone, protesters have gathered and scattered around Tim Hwa Avenue and Harcourt Road. Outside Admiralty Center right now, some groups have been giving speeches. These include academics that have been talking about democracy to the students. Looking at the size of the crowd tonight here in Admiralty, there is definitely less protesters here compared with previous nights here in Admiralty. That's all from me. Back to you in the studio.
Now, the number of demonstrators in the Mongkok and Causeway Bay protest areas has dropped compared with last week. And the situation there is generally calm. Our Ronnie Samtani has more.
While many protesters left Mongkok last night to join the rally in Admiralty, others have decided to stay put. They continue to occupy the junction of Nathan Road and Argyle Street.
I will stay until Chief Executive C. Weiler answers to our democratic request. I think every citizen here, they have independent thinking. So they know and they should choose where to stay.
The atmosphere has mostly been calm in the protest zone here following last week's attacks on demonstrators. Still, there were a few incidents between demonstrators and those against the protest. At around 11 this morning, the driver of a private car arrived at Mongkok Road. He tried to remove the barriers, but was stopped by protesters. The road is for cars, so why are they blocking it? The man questioned. Police intervened and moved in to resolve the dispute. The driver was let go, angering some of the protesters. Sporadic disputes between demonstrators and counter-demonstrators occurred as well. Here, protesters were able to calm the situation and drown out the opposition voices by singing songs. Police generally managed to keep the situation under control. Officers escorted anti-Occupy protesters away last night and early this morning. And demonstrators said their relationship with the police has improved.
Last night, some protesters playing magic with the police, and yeah, you never saw that before. I think they changed the attitude because they know they can understand, start understanding what we are doing here.
Over the past few days, there has been a constant police presence at the Mongkok protest zone. Depending on the size of the crowd, officers have been deployed to different positions to monitor the junction of Nathan Road and Argyle Street. Over in Causeway Bay, a small group of protesters is still making its presence felt. They're gathered under tents on Yiwa Road. Some shops in the area remained closed today because of the protest. Ronnie Samtani, TVB News.
The Education Bureau announced classes will resume tomorrow for primary school and special school students in 2 districts on Hong Kong Island affected by the Occupy protests. Stephanie Choi has that story.
Class will resume tomorrow for primary schools and special schools in the Wan Chai as well as the central and western districts.
If everything goes smoothly, we hope that kindergartens can also resume classes as soon as possible.
After a week-long suspension, classes resumed at secondary schools in the 2 districts today. City Bus 40M bus route, which has been tweaked to fit the needs of students and staff affected by the road closures, was a popular choice. Still, the student complained about the need to transit, pointing out that he used to take a bus direct from Western District. Another student who goes to school on Bonham Road said although it took him 15 minutes longer than usual to get to school, he finds it acceptable. Adults made alternative traffic arrangements too. This man, who usually takes a cross-harbour bus, said it's unacceptable that he needs to get up 15 minutes earlier to get to work via MTR. But this woman said she doesn't feel inconvenienced and that she supports the Occupy protesters.
No, I'm fine. Okay, they're fighting for the right thing.
Others walked along Queensway, which is still closed for traffic. This man told us that he doesn't usually have to walk to work, but felt good about walking today. Over on Cotton Tree Drive, fire services staff had to remove barricades that had blocked 3 fire engines. And in Kowloon, traffic heading towards Mongkok along Prince Edward Road East was very busy during the morning rush hour. Stephanie Choi, TVB News.